The morning alarm echoed through the metal halls of Kepler Station. Bright lights flickered on in dormitory rooms across 3 different sectors. Alien cadets from 12 worlds stirred in their beds, preparing for another day at the Galactic Defense Institute. Hana Kim walked down the long corridor carrying a small bag of teaching materials. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard instructor uniform of dark blue with silver stripes on the shoulders. At 5 feet and 4 inches tall, she looked tiny compared to the massive alien students she would soon meet. The other human instructors nodded politely as she passed. Most of them taught subjects like diplomatic relations, trade negotiations, or peaceful conflict resolution. These were the courses humans were known for throughout the galaxy. Everyone expected humans to be good at talking and bad at fighting. Hana reached classroom 7 and placed her bag on the metal desk at the front. The room had 24 chairs arranged in neat rows. Each chair was built to accommodate different alien body types. Some were wide for the bulky Krillians. Others were tall for the lengthy Xantharians. A few had special padding for species, with unusual sitting requirements. She pulled out her datapad and reviewed the class roster. Captain Rei Nakamura from the Zentari homeworld. His file showed 3 years of combat experience and 2 military decorations. Commander Yuki Sato from the Vorthon colonies, known for strategic thinking and battle planning. Lieutenant Baksu from Krillia, an engineer who specialized in weapons systems. The door opened and her students began filing in. Captain Rei entered first. He stood 7 feet tall with 4 arms and dark blue skin marked with ritual scars. His yellow eyes looked down at Hana with obvious surprise. He had expected a larger, more impressive instructor. Commander Yuki followed behind him. She belonged to a species that looked similar to humans, but with gray skin and larger heads. Her 3 eyes blinked in sequence as she studied Hana carefully. She whispered something to Captain Rei in the common galactic language. Lieutenant Baksu squeezed through the doorway. His people were short and wide with thick, rocky skin. He carried himself with the careful movements of someone used to working with delicate equipment. His small black eyes focused on Hana with curiosity rather than respect. More students entered the room. Jin Park from Altaria moved with the smooth grace of his feline species. Bo Young from the gas giant Nebulon floated slightly above his chair, using anti-gravity devices built into his environmental suit. Dinah O came from a world of ice and snow, her pale skin almost white under the classroom lights. Each student found their assigned seat. Low conversations began in various alien languages. Hana caught fragments of their discussions. Many seemed confused about having a human instructor for combat training. Others made jokes about diplomatic fighting techniques. Hana stood behind her desk and waited. The conversations continued for several minutes. She did not call for attention or demand silence. She simply stood there with her hands clasped behind her back, watching her students with calm, dark eyes. One by one, the aliens noticed her patient stance. The talking slowly died down until the room became quiet. This took nearly 5 minutes. Hana had waited without showing any sign of impatience or annoyance. "Good morning," she said in clear, simple galactic common tongue. "I am Instructor Kim. This course is called Practical Combat Applications. Over the next 8 weeks, you will learn methods for surviving dangerous situations and completing military missions." Captain Rei raised one of his 4 hands. "Instructor Kim, may I ask about your combat experience? Your file was not available for our review." "You may ask," Hana replied. "What specific information would you like to know? Have you seen actual battle?" Many human instructors at this academy teach theory rather than practice. Hana nodded slowly. "I have seen battle, Captain Rei. Is there a particular reason you ask?" The Zentari captain looked around at his fellow students. Several of them nodded encouragingly. "With respect, Instructor, humans are known throughout the galaxy as diplomats and negotiators. We are warriors from military cultures. Perhaps someone with more combat background would better serve our needs." Murmurs of agreement came from around the classroom. Jin Park spoke up from his seat near the back. "My people have fought wars for 1,000 years. The Zentari have conquered 12 star systems. Commander Yuki's species defeated the robot rebellion of Sector 9. What battles have humans won? More voices joined the discussion. Lieutenant Baksu mentioned that human colonies always called for help when pirates attacked their trade routes. Bo Young pointed out that human diplomats were famous for avoiding fights rather than winning them. Dana O wondered aloud if humans even understood what real warfare looked like. Hana listened to each comment without interruption. She took a small notebook from her pocket and wrote down several names. Her expression remained calm and professional throughout the increasingly heated discussion. Commander Yuki finally called for quiet. Instructor Kim, we mean no disrespect to your species. Humans serve important roles in galactic society. However, combat instruction requires someone who understands warrior culture and military thinking. I understand your concerns, Hana said, putting away her notebook. Tell me, what do you believe makes a good warrior? Captain Ray answered first. Strength, courage, and honor in battle. Victory through superior tactics, added Commander Yuki. Better. Weapons and equipment, said Lieutenant Bok Sujin Park stood up from his chair. A warrior fights for glory and proves their worth through combat. Hana walked around to the front of her desk. She leaned against it casually and crossed her arms. Those are interesting answers. Let me ask a different question. How many of you have lost a battle? The room became very quiet. Warriors did not like admitting defeat, even in training exercises. How many of you have seen your fellow soldiers die because of poor planning or bad decisions? The silence grew heavier. Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. How many of you have been forced to retreat from a fight you thought you could win? Captain Ray cleared his throat. These questions seem designed to embarrass us, Instructor. Not at all, Hana replied. I am trying to understand what you think warfare actually involves. You speak of honor and glory and proving worth through combat. These are beautiful concepts. They inspire great stories and proud traditions. She picked up a standard plasma rifle from the equipment rack behind her desk. The weapon was sleek and modern, designed for maximum efficiency in space combat. This is a Mk7 plasma rifle, she continued, holding the weapon with practiced ease. Maximum effective range of 800 meters, 40-shot power cell, standard issue for most galactic military forces. Can anyone tell me the most important feature of this weapon? Lieutenant Baksu raised his hand. The plasma containment field allows for precise energy discharge. The targeting system provides accurate fire even in low light conditions, suggested Commander Yuki. Wrong, said Hana simply. The most important feature of any weapon is the person holding it. All the technology in the galaxy means nothing if the user makes poor decisions. She returned the rifle to its rack and faced the class again. Tomorrow, we will begin practical exercises. You will learn why humans approach combat differently than other species. You may discover that our methods produce different results than you expect. The class period ended with the sound of the station bell. Students gathered their materials and prepared to leave. As they filed out of the room, Hana heard continued discussions about human weakness and diplomatic fighting styles. Jin Park stopped at her desk before leaving. Instructor Kim, I hope you will not take our questions personally. We simply want to learn from someone who has real experience. I appreciate your honesty, Cadet Park, Hana replied. Tomorrow you will begin to understand what human experience looks like. After the last student left, Hana remained at her desk for several minutes. She opened her notebook and reviewed the names she had written during class. These were the students who had been most vocal about human inadequacy. Tomorrow would be very educational for all of them. 2 weeks had passed since Hana Kim began teaching her combat applications course. Each day brought new lessons in weapons handling, tactical movement, and battlefield communication. The alien students attended every class, but their attitudes had not improved. Captain Ray Nakamura sat in the front row, his forearms crossed in obvious boredom. During weapon demonstrations, he would sigh loudly and tap his claws against the desk. When Hana explained safety procedures, he would roll his yellow eyes toward the ceiling. Commander Yuki Sato took detailed notes, but often questioned every instruction. She would raise her hand and suggest alternative methods used by Vorthon military forces. Her three eyes would blink in sequence when she disagreed with something, which happened frequently. Lieutenant Bok Su seemed more interested in the technical specifications of their equipment than actual combat training. He spent most of each class period examining his plasma rifle and asking questions about power cells and targeting systems. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning during hand-to-hand combat instruction. Hana was demonstrating basic defensive positions when Jin Park interrupted from his seat near the back wall. "Instructor Kim, this is ridiculous," the Altarian said, his cat-like features twisted in frustration. "You are teaching us to hide and run away. Where I come from, warriors face their enemies directly." Several other students nodded in agreement. Bo Young floated higher in his chair, his environmental suit making soft humming sounds. "On Nebulan, we believe that avoiding combat shows weakness. A true fighter never backs down from a challenge." Hana stopped her demonstration and faced the class. "Cadet Park, what would you suggest instead?" Jin Park stood up, his movements fluid and graceful. "Teach us real fighting techniques. Show us how to defeat enemies in direct combat. Stop wasting our time with these coward tactics." The word coward hung in the air like a challenge. Other students shifted in their seats, sensing the tension building in the room. Captain Ray uncrossed his arms and leaned forward, interested in how their human instructor would respond to such direct criticism. "Coward tactics," Hana repeated slowly, as if tasting the words. "That is an interesting way to describe survival. Techniques. Tell me, Cadet Park, how many battles have you personally fought?" "I have completed 3 combat missions for the Altarian Defense Force," Jin replied proudly. "Each time I fought with honor and courage." "And how many of your fellow soldiers were injured or killed during those missions?" Jin Park hesitated. The question was not what he had expected. "Some casualties are normal in warfare. It is the price of victory." Hana walked closer to his desk. "How many, Cadet Park? Give me specific numbers." 12 soldiers were lost during my first mission," Jin admitted reluctantly. 8 during the second, 15 during the third. 35 deaths in 3 missions, Hana said, making a note in her datapad. "What were your mission objectives?" "We were ordered to capture enemy positions and hold them against counterattack." "Were these objectives accomplished?" Jin Park's confidence began to waver. 2 missions were successful. 1 was not. Hana turned to address the entire class. "So, we have 35 deaths to accomplish 2 objectives. Does anyone else wish to share their combat statistics?" Captain Ray spoke up. "During the Zentari expansion wars, my unit suffered 40% casualties over 6 months. This is normal for aggressive military operations." "Normal?" Hana repeated. "Commander Yuki, what about Vorthon forces?" "Our strategic approach reduces casualties," Yuki replied defensively. "We typically lose only 20 to 30% of our forces during major campaigns." "Only 20 to 30%, Hana said, writing more numbers. "Lieutenant Bok Su, what do Krillian engineers consider acceptable losses?" The rocky-skinned alien shifted uncomfortably. "Engineering units stay behind frontline troops. Our casualties are usually under 15%. Hana finished her calculations and set down her datapad. "So, according to this class, normal military operations result in losing between 15 and 40% of your soldiers. You consider this acceptable because you fight with honor and courage." Dana O raised her pale hand. "What casualty rates do human forces experience, Instructor?" "That depends on the situation," Hana answered. "But since you have all been questioning human military effectiveness, let me share some information." She walked to the front of the classroom and activated the wall display. Images of various battle scenarios appeared on the screen. These are records from recent human military operations. Hostage rescue on Kepler-7, counter-piracy action in Thai, the Outer Rim, evacuation of civilians from contested territory. The students looked at the images with mild interest. Nothing seemed particularly impressive about the scenes shown. Mission 1, 43 hostages rescued, 0 civilian casualties, 0 friendly casualties, Hana continued. Mission 2, 18 pirates captured, their ship disabled, 0 friendly casualties. Mission 3, 2,000 civilians evacuated, enemy forces neutralized, 0 friendly casualties. Jin Park frowned. These sound like police actions, not military operations. You are correct, Hana replied. Human military doctrine focuses on accomplishing objectives with minimal loss of life. We do not consider high casualty rates to be normal or acceptable. Captain Ray leaned back in his chair. But how can you achieve military objectives without accepting combat losses? Sometimes warriors must die for victory. Must they? Hana asked. Or do they die because their commanders use poor tactics and inadequate planning? The room became very quiet. Several students looked uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Commander Yuki spoke carefully. Instructor Kim, are you suggesting that our military traditions are flawed? I am suggesting that different species approach warfare differently, Hana replied. Your cultures value honor, courage, and direct confrontation. These are admirable qualities. They inspire great loyalty and fierce determination. She paused and looked around the room. However, dead heroes cannot complete missions or protect civilians or return home to their families. Lieutenant Baksu raised his hand. Then what do humans value in warfare? Results, Hana said simply. We value completing the mission, protecting innocent people, and bringing our soldiers home alive. Everything else is secondary. Jin Park stood up again, his tail lashing with agitation. But where is the honor in that approach? What glory can warriors claim if they avoid direct battle? Hana smiled for the first time in weeks. It was not a warm or friendly expression. Tomorrow, we will have a practical examination. Each of you will participate in a combat simulation designed to test everything you have learned so far. She walked back to her desk and began packing her teaching materials. The scenario will involve a hostage rescue mission. You will work as a team to accomplish your objectives while facing numerically superior enemy forces. Captain Ray flexed his forearms. Finally, a real test of combat skills. Indeed, Hana agreed. You will have access to standard weapons and equipment. The simulation will run until you either complete the mission or all team members are eliminated. Bo Young's environmental suit made excited beeping sounds. How realistic will this simulation be? Very realistic, Hana replied. Pain inhibitors will be set to minimum levels. You will experience actual physical discomfort when hit by enemy fire. Medical teams will be standing by in case of serious injury. The students exchanged eager glances. This sounded like exactly the kind of challenge they had been hoping for. One more thing, Hana added as she reached the door. I will be observing your performance from a secure location. Based on what I see tomorrow, we will determine whether this class is ready to continue advanced combat training. She left the classroom, leaving 24 excited alien cadets behind her. They spent the rest of the morning discussing strategy and planning their approach to the upcoming test. None of them noticed the small smile on Hana Kim's face as she walked down the corridor toward the simulation control room. The holographic combat simulator occupied an entire deck of Kepler Station. Advanced computers created realistic environments complete with weather, sound effects, and physical obstacles. Medical sensors monitored every participant to prevent serious injury while allowing them to experience the stress and pain of actual combat. Hana Kim stood in the observation booth overlooking the simulation floor. Through reinforced windows, she watched her 24 students prepare their equipment. They moved with confidence and excitement, eager to prove their warrior skills against whatever challenge she had programmed. Captain Ray Nakamura checked his plasma rifle for the third time. His forearms allowed him to manipulate equipment faster than most species. The ritual scars on his blue skin seemed to glow under the simulation chamber lights. Commander Yuki Sato gathered her team leaders around a portable display screen. Her 3 eyes blinked rapidly as she explained tactical positions and movement patterns. The other students listened respectfully to her strategic advice. Lieutenant Baksu examined every piece of electronic equipment with careful attention. His rocky fingers traced power connections and targeting systems. As an engineer, he wanted to understand exactly how their weapons would perform in the coming test. Jin Park stretched his feline muscles and practiced combat stances. His people were natural hunters with excellent reflexes and coordination. He expected to excel in close-quarters fighting situations. Bo Young hovered near the equipment racks, his environmental suit making soft humming sounds. The anti-gravity systems that kept him mobile also allowed for rapid movement in 3 dimensions. Dana O checked her cold weather gear, even though the simulation environment would be temperate. Her pale features showed determination mixed with nervous energy. Hana activated the communication system and spoke to her students. "Attention, cadets. Your mission briefing will begin in 60 seconds. Please gather around the central display terminal." The aliens formed a loose circle around the holographic projector. Blue light filled the air above the device, creating a detailed map of an urban environment. "This is the city of New Jakarta on the colony world of Kepler Prime," Hana announced. "Terrorist forces have seized the central government building and taken 47 civilian hostages. Your mission is to enter the building, neutralize the enemy forces, and evacuate all civilians safely." Captain Ray studied the building layout. "How many enemy combatants are we facing?" "Intelligence estimates indicate between 60 and 80 hostile fighters," Hana replied. "They are armed with military-grade weapons and have had several hours to prepare defensive positions." Commander Yuki frowned. "We are outnumbered at least 3-1. This seems like an unrealistic scenario." "Unfortunately, military operations rarely offer favorable odds," Hana said. "You have 30 minutes to plan your assault. The simulation will begin when you enter the target building." Jin Park raised his hand. "What weapons are available to us?" "Standard plasma rifles, sidearms, tactical explosives, and communication equipment. The same gear you have been training with for 2 weeks." Lieutenant Bok Su examined the building schematics more closely. "Are there any special considerations we should know about?" "The hostages are civilian contractors from multiple species. They have no military training and will likely panic during combat operations. Enemy forces will not hesitate to harm civilians if they feel threatened." The students spent the next 30 minutes developing their assault plan. Captain Ray advocated for a direct frontal attack to overwhelm enemy positions through superior firepower. Commander Yuki suggested a more cautious approach with multiple entry points and coordinated timing. Jin Park wanted to use stealth infiltration to get close to enemy positions before launching their attack. Bo Young proposed using his mobility advantage to attack from above, while ground forces engaged enemy attention. After much discussion, they settled on a compromise plan. Half the team would create a distraction at the main entrance, while the other half entered through a side access tunnel. Once inside, they would advance methodically from floor to floor until all hostiles were eliminated. "Time is up," Hana announced. "Please proceed to the simulation chamber entrance. Remember, pain inhibitors are set to minimum levels. You will experience realistic consequences for poor tactical decisions." The students moved into the holographic environment with confidence. The computer-generated cityscape looked completely real, complete with damaged vehicles, scattered debris, and the sound of distant weapons fire. The government building stood 5 stories tall with multiple windows and access points. Smoke drifted from several upper floors where explosions had damaged the structure. Emergency lights flashed on nearby buildings. Captain Ray led the frontal assault team toward the main entrance. His forearms allowed him to carry extra weapons and equipment. Behind him, Jin Park moved with feline grace while Dana O covered their advance with precise rifle fire. Commander Yuki took the infiltration team toward the side tunnel entrance. Bo Young floated overhead, using his environmental suit sensors to scout for enemy positions. Lieutenant Bok Su worked to disable security systems that might alert the terrorists to their presence. The assault began exactly as planned. "Captain." Ray's team launched a fierce attack on the main entrance, drawing enemy fire and attention. Plasma bolts flew in both directions as the aliens engaged in direct combat with their holographic opponents. Meanwhile, Commander Yuki led her team through the access tunnel and into the building's lower level. They moved carefully, checking each corner and doorway for potential threats. Within minutes, everything started going wrong. The frontal assault team found themselves pinned down by concentrated enemy fire from multiple elevated positions. Captain Ray tried to advance but was forced to take cover behind a damaged ground vehicle. Jin Park attempted to flank the enemy positions, but walked into a carefully prepared ambush. The infiltration team discovered that the side entrance was heavily trapped with explosive devices. Lieutenant Boksu managed to disable 2 bombs before accidentally triggering a third. The explosion knocked down half his team and alerted every terrorist in the building to their presence. Enemy forces began moving to surround both groups of alien students. What had seemed like a straightforward military operation turned into a desperate struggle for survival. From her observation booth, Hana watched the disaster unfold with professional interest. Her students were brave and determined, but they were using predictable tactics that any competent enemy could counter. Bo Young tried to use his aerial advantage but was quickly shot down by concentrated anti-aircraft fire. Dana O provided excellent covering fire, but could not advance against superior numbers. Commander Yuki made sound tactical decisions, but could not compensate for her team's exposed positions. After 15 minutes of intense fighting, 12 of the 24 students had been eliminated by simulated enemy fire. The remaining aliens were scattered throughout the building with no clear way to accomplish their mission objectives. Captain Ray spoke into his communication device with frustration clear in his voice. "Instructor Kim, we need reinforcements. The enemy forces are too well prepared. No reinforcements are available," Hana replied calmly. "You must complete the mission with your current resources." "This is impossible," Jin Park complained as he dragged a wounded teammate to safety. "We cannot advance against these defensive positions." Hana stood up in her observation booth and picked up a simple ballistic pistol from the equipment rack. The weapon was an old human design that most aliens considered primitive and ineffective. She walked down to the simulation chamber and entered through the main access door. The holographic environment recognized her presence and adjusted accordingly. She now stood in the middle of the urban battlefield while combat raged around her. The alien students looked at her with confusion and surprise. Their human instructor stood calmly in an active combat zone, seemingly unconcerned about the plasma bolts flying overhead. Hana raised the ballistic pistol and fired a single shot into the air. The loud bang echoed off the surrounding buildings. Immediately, the simulation froze. All movement stopped and weapons ceased firing. She walked over to Sergeant Bo Young, who was crouched behind an overturned vehicle trying to treat his damaged environmental suit. Hana held out the empty pistol toward him. "Questions?" she asked quietly. Bo Young stared at the weapon, then at his instructor, then at his scattered and defeated teammates. For the first time since classes began, none of the alien students had anything to say. The silence in the simulation chamber stretched for nearly a full minute. 24 alien cadets stared at their human instructor, trying to understand what had just happened. They were seasoned military officers from warrior cultures across the galaxy, yet they had been completely defeated by holographic enemies programmed by a small woman they had dismissed as weak. Hana Kim walked through the frozen simulation, stepping over debris and pausing to examine the positions where her students had taken cover. Her expression remained calm and professional, showing no satisfaction at their failure. "Computer reset simulation to starting parameters," she announced. The urban battlefield dissolved and reformed, returning to its initial state before the assault began. Captain Ray Nakamura flexed his forearms, working out the tension from 15 minutes of desperate combat. "Instructor Kim, I do not understand what went wrong. We followed standard military assault procedures." "That is exactly the problem," Hana replied, turning to face the assembled students. "You followed standard procedures. Your enemies knew exactly what you would do because you did exactly what any competent military force would expect." Commander Yuki stepped forward, her 3 eyes blinking in sequence as she processed this information. "Are you suggesting that following proper tactical doctrine is wrong?" "I am suggesting that predictable tactics produce predictable results," Hana answered. Your assault plan was textbook perfect. Any military academy in the galaxy would give you high marks for coordination, communication, and execution. She walked to the holographic display terminal and activated a tactical analysis program. The screen showed the positions of every student during the failed assault, along with enemy response patterns. Captain Ray, your frontal assault drew enemy attention, exactly as planned. However, you advanced along the most obvious route using standard fire and movement techniques. The enemy knew where you would go and when you would get there. The Zentari warrior studied the display with growing understanding. They had prepared defensive positions specifically to counter our approach. Commander Yuki, your infiltration team showed excellent stealth and coordination. Unfortunately, you chose the most logical entry point for a flanking maneuver. Any defender worth their training would have trapped and monitored that location. The Vorthon strategist nodded slowly. We gave them time to prepare countermeasures for obvious tactical choices. Jin Park raised his hand. But Instructor, these are proven military methods. They have been used successfully for centuries by multiple species. Against enemies who use the same methods, Hana pointed out. What happens when you face opponents who think differently about warfare? Lieutenant Baksu looked confused. How else would anyone approach military operations? There are established principles of tactics and strategy. Hana smiled slightly. Let me show you some alternative approaches. Computer, load historical combat scenarios from Earth archives. The display changed to show a series of human military engagements from different time periods. Ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern warfare, and colonial conflicts appeared in sequence. These are examples of human military doctrine developed over thousands of years of almost constant warfare, Hana explained. Notice that humans rarely rely on direct confrontation when other options exist. The first scenario showed a small force using hit-and-run tactics to defeat a much larger army. Harassment warfare. Make the enemy exhausted and frustrated instead of facing them directly. The second example displayed urban combat where civilians were evacuated through underground tunnels while defenders used building collapses to channel enemy movement. Environmental manipulation. Make the battlefield work for you instead of against you. A third scene showed psychological warfare techniques where false information led enemy forces into carefully prepared traps. Deception operations. Make your enemies defeat themselves through poor decisions. Captain Ray studied the examples with growing interest. These tactics seem dishonest. Where is the honor in tricking your enemies? Where is the honor in getting your soldiers killed unnecessarily? Hana countered. Human military philosophy prioritizes mission success and troop survival over abstract concepts of fairness. Commander Yuki raised her hand. But surely there are situations where direct combat cannot be avoided. How do humans handle those circumstances? We try to ensure that such situations never arise, Hana replied. And when they do occur, we fight with every available advantage, rather than limiting ourselves to honorable methods. She activated another historical example. This one showed a desperate defensive action where a small human force held off overwhelming numbers through careful preparation, psychological warfare, and willingness to use unconventional weapons. The goal is not to prove your courage or demonstrate your warrior spirit, Hana continued. The goal is to complete the mission and go home alive. Bo Young's environmental suit made thoughtful beeping sounds. This approach seems very different from what we were taught in our military academies. Because your academies train warriors, Hana said. Human military institutions train soldiers. The difference is significant. Jin Park looked puzzled. What is the difference between warriors and soldiers? Warriors fight for glory, honor, and personal recognition. Soldiers fight to accomplish specific objectives with minimum casualties. Both approaches have their place, but they produce very different results. Dana O raised her pale hand. Instructor Kim, can you show us how human tactics would handle the hostage rescue scenario? I can do better than that, Hana replied. We will run the simulation again. This time, I want you to forget everything you learned in your military academies. Think instead about the simplest and most effective way to accomplish your objectives. She reset the simulation once more. The urban environment reformed around them, complete with the government building and terrorist offenders. Before you begin, ask yourselves these questions. Hana continued. What do the terrorists want? Why did they take hostages? What are they afraid of? How can you use their fears and motivations against them? Lieutenant Bok-Soo frowned. Are you suggesting we negotiate with terrorists? I am suggesting you understand your enemies before you fight them, Hana clarified. If you know what they want, you can predict what they will do. If you know what they fear, you can control their actions. Captain Ray looked uncomfortable with this approach. It still seems like cowardice to avoid direct battle. Call it whatever you like, Hana said. But remember that 47 innocent civilians are depending on your tactical decisions. They do not care whether you fight with honor. They care whether they survive. Commander Yuki studied the building layout with new perspective. If we assume the terrorists want to escape with their lives, they would need transportation and safe passage. We could use that. Now you are thinking like a human soldier, Hana approved. What else can you determine about enemy psychology? Bo Young consulted his sensor readings. They chose a government building for symbolic value. They want attention and recognition for their cause, which means they will be monitoring news broadcasts and communication channels, Jin Park added, beginning to understand the concept. Excellent, Hana said. Now plan your assault based on enemy psychology rather than military doctrine. Make them come to you instead of advancing into prepared positions. The students spent the next 20 minutes developing a completely different approach to the mission. Instead of direct assault or infiltration, they focused on manipulation and deception. They would use false communications to convince the terrorists that massive military reinforcements were surrounding the building. Fake news broadcasts would announce that their political demands were being considered by government officials. Carefully placed distractions would draw defenders away from key positions. This still feels wrong, Captain Ray admitted as they prepared to enter the simulation. We are lying to our enemies instead of defeating them through superior combat skills. Are the hostages more likely to survive using your approach or mine? Hana asked. The Zentari warrior had no answer for that question. For the first time in his military career, he began to question whether superior combat skills were always the best solution to tactical problems. The second assault began with the same confidence, but entirely different methods. This time, the alien students achieved complete surprise and rescued all 47 hostages with 0 casualties on either side. As they walked out of the simulation chamber, none of the students spoke. They were processing a fundamental change in how they understood warfare. Hana Kim followed behind them, making notes in her datapad. Tomorrow would bring even more challenging lessons about human military thinking. News of Instructor Kim's unusual training methods spread quickly through the halls of Kepler Station. Other faculty members whispered about psychological warfare techniques and unconventional tactical approaches. Some approved of the innovative instruction. Others worried about the diplomatic implications. Admiral Tae Kim sat behind his desk in the station command center, reading reports from various species representatives. The Zentari military attaché complained that human instruction was corrupting traditional warrior values. The Vorthan education minister questioned whether manipulation tactics belonged in a respectable military academy. The admiral activated his communication system and called for Instructor Kim to report to his office. Immediately, Hana arrived 20 minutes later, carrying her usual datapad and teaching materials. She stood at attention in front of the admiral's desk, waiting for him to speak. Instructor Kim, I have received several complaints about your combat applications course, Admiral Tae began. Representatives from multiple species are concerned about your teaching methods. May I ask what specific concerns they have raised, sir? Hana replied professionally. They claim you are teaching dishonorable tactics. Deception, manipulation, psychological warfare. These approaches conflict with established military traditions from their homeworlds. Hana considered her response carefully. Admiral, my students are military officers who may face life and death situations. Should I teach them methods that make them feel honorable or methods that keep them alive? Admiral Tay leaned back in his chair. That is a fair question. However, the Galactic Defense Institute has diplomatic responsibilities as well as educational ones. We cannot afford to offend our allied species. Sir, yesterday my students completed a hostage rescue simulation with 0 casualties using human tactical approaches. 2 weeks ago, the same students suffered 50% losses attempting the same mission with traditional methods. Which result better serves our allied species? The Admiral studied the performance reports on his desk. The improvement in student effectiveness was undeniable. However, political considerations complicated the situation. Instructor Kim, I am not questioning the effectiveness of your methods. I am concerned about the broader implications of teaching alien military officers to think like humans. Before Hana could respond, the station emergency alarm began sounding. Red lights flashed throughout the command center while automated announcements echoed through the corridors. All senior staff report to the command center immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat. All senior staff report to the command center immediately. Admiral Tay activated his tactical display screen. The image showed a civilian passenger liner drifting in space approximately 6 hours away from Kepler Station. The ship appeared to be dead in the water with no engine power or communication signals. Commander Yoon Soo, the station's intelligence officer, rushed into the office carrying urgent dispatches. Admiral, we have received a ransom demand from the passenger liner, Harmony Dawn. Pirates have seized control of the ship and are holding 400 civilians hostage. What are their demands? Admiral Tay asked. 50 million credits in untraceable currency and safe passage to the Outer Rim territories. They threaten to begin executing hostages in 12 hours if their demands are not met. Hana studied the tactical information displayed on the Admiral's screen. Sir, what military assets do we have available for a rescue operation? The training cruiser Soul Pride with a crew of academy instructors and advanced students, Commander Yoon replied. All other military vessels are currently deployed on routine patrol missions. Admiral Tay made rapid calculations. The Soul Pride can reach the passenger liner in 4 hours. That gives us an 8-hour window to plan and execute a rescue operation. Sir, Hana said quietly, my combat application students are aboard, the Soul Pride for their advanced training rotation. They are the most qualified personnel available for this mission. The Admiral looked skeptical. Your students failed their first simulation exercise. Are you certain they are ready for actual combat operations? 2 days ago, those same students completed a perfect hostage rescue using modified human tactical approaches. They understand both traditional methods and alternative strategies. Commander Yoon studied the passenger liner specifications. Admiral, the pirates have had several hours to prepare their defenses. Any conventional assault will likely result in significant civilian casualties. Admiral Tay faced a difficult decision. Standard military protocol called for negotiating with the pirates while assembling overwhelming force for a rescue operation. However, time constraints and limited resources made that approach problematic. Instructor Kim, if I authorize this mission, will you take personal responsibility for the outcome? Yes, sir, Hana replied without hesitation. I will accompany the students and provide tactical guidance during the operation. Very well. You have authorization to proceed. Commander Yoon will provide intelligence support and coordination with civilian authorities. 1 hour later, Hana stood in the briefing room aboard the Soul Pride addressing her 24 students. The training cruiser was already accelerating toward the hijacked passenger liner at maximum speed. Captain Ray Nakamura studied the tactical display showing the enemy ship. Instructor, this is not a simulation. Real civilians will die if we make mistakes. That is correct, Hana replied, which is why you will use every technique I have taught you, regardless of how dishonorable it might seem. Commander Yuki examined intelligence reports about the pirate organization. These are not amateur terrorists. They have military-grade equipment and professional training. Then we will need to be more professional than they are, Hana said. Lieutenant Baksu, what can you tell me about the passenger liner systems? The Krillian engineer consulted his technical databases. The Harmony Dawn has multiple access points, backup power systems, and compartmentalized life support. Pirates cannot monitor or control every section simultaneously. Jin Park studied passenger manifest information. 400 civilians from 12 different species. Many are elderly or traveling with young children. They will panic during any rescue attempt. Which means speed and surprise are essential, Hana noted. Bo Young, can your environmental suit operate in the vacuum between ships? Yes, Instructor. I can provide reconnaissance and external assault support if needed. Dana O reviewed the pirate demands and communication intercepts. They seem confident that we will negotiate rather than attack. Their defensive preparations focus on preventing escape rather than repelling assault. Hana smiled approvingly. Now you are thinking like human soldiers. Use enemy assumptions against them. The next 3 hours were spent developing a comprehensive assault plan based on psychological manipulation, environmental advantages, and coordinated deception. The students no longer questioned unconventional tactics. They embraced every dirty trick and underhanded method their instructor suggested. Remember, Hana said as they prepared for combat, your job is not to prove your courage or demonstrate superior warrior skills. Your job is to rescue 400 innocent people and return them safely to their families. Captain Ray checked his equipment one final time. Instructor Kim, will you be joining us during the actual assault? I will be monitoring from the Soul Pride and providing tactical coordination, Hana replied. This mission belongs to you. Use everything you have learned. As the Soul Pride approached the hijacked passenger liner, none of the students felt the eager anticipation they had experienced before their first simulation. This was real combat with real consequences. For the first time in their military careers, they understood the weight of responsibility that human soldiers carried into every battle. The Soul Pride moved silently through space toward the hijacked passenger liner Harmony Dawn. In the ship's tactical center, Hana Kim monitored communication channels while her students prepared for the most important mission of their lives. 400 innocent civilians waited aboard the pirate-controlled vessel, men, women, and children from a dozen different species, all depending on 24 alien cadets who had spent weeks complaining about human military methods. Instructor Kim, we are in position, Captain Ray reported through his communication device. His forearms worked efficiently as he checked equipment one final time. The ritual scars on his blue skin seemed darker under the combat lighting. Confirmed, Captain. All teams report ready status, Hana replied from her command position. Commander. Yuki led the primary assault team through the Soul Pride's docking tunnel. Her 3 eyes blinked in careful sequence as she reviewed last-minute tactical adjustments. Behind her, Jin Park moved with predatory grace while Dana O monitored environmental conditions. Lieutenant Bok Su supervised the technical warfare team, responsible for disrupting pirate communication and control systems. His rocky fingers traced power connections with practiced skill. Bo Young floated nearby in his environmental suit, preparing for external reconnaissance operations. The assault began with psychological warfare rather than weapons fire. False communication signals convinced the pirates that a massive naval fleet was approaching their position. Fake news broadcasts announced that government negotiators were considering their demands while secretly deploying special forces. Carefully planted evidence suggested that several pirates were actually undercover agents planning to betray their comrades for reward money. Within minutes, the criminal organization began fragmenting as paranoia and suspicion spread through their ranks. Bo Young used his environmental suit to approach the passenger liner from an unexpected angle. His reconnaissance revealed that the pirates had concentrated their defenses around obvious entry points while leaving service tunnels and maintenance shafts poorly guarded. Team leaders, this is reconnaissance, Bo Young reported quietly. Enemy forces are repositioning to counter threats that do not exist. Primary defensive positions are being abandoned. Jin Park led his infiltration team through the maintenance systems, moving like shadows through the ship's interior. His feline reflexes and natural hunting instincts proved invaluable for silent movement in confined spaces. Meanwhile, Commander Yuki coordinated a complex deception operation that made the pirates believe they were facing assault teams at multiple locations simultaneously. Holographic projectors created false sensor readings while recorded combat sounds suggested intense fighting in empty corridors. The pirates scattered their forces trying to defend against attacks that existed only in their imagination. Within 30 minutes, their organized defense collapsed into chaos and confusion. Captain Ray waited for the perfect moment to strike. When the enemy was completely disorganized, his assault team moved through the passenger sections with surgical precision. They neutralized isolated groups of pirates without firing a single shot that might endanger civilians. Lieutenant Bok-Soo disabled the ship's internal communication system, preventing the criminals from coordinating their response. Emergency lighting. Failures created additional confusion while backup power systems were selectively shut down in strategic areas. The rescue operation proceeded with clockwork efficiency. Small teams of students moved through the passenger liner, evacuating civilians to secure areas while systematically eliminating pirate resistance. Dana O coordinated medical support for passengers who had been injured during the initial hijacking. Her cold weather survival training translated perfectly to emergency medical procedures under stress. All teams status report, Hana requested from the Seoul Pride Command Center. Team Alpha has secured passenger deck 3, 28 civilians, evacuated safely, Jin Park reported. Team Beta controlling engineering section, pirates surrendering without resistance, Commander Yuki added. Team Gamma has cleared the bridge, ship systems under our control, Captain Ray confirmed. The entire operation took less than 2 hours from start to finish. 400 civilians were rescued without a single casualty. 18 pirates were captured alive and turned over to galactic law enforcement authorities. As the students returned to the Seoul Pride, they moved with quiet professionalism rather than celebration. They had accomplished their mission, but the weight of responsibility had changed them permanently. 3 days later, the combat applications class met in their regular classroom aboard Kepler Station. News of the successful rescue operation had spread throughout the academy. Other instructors spoke respectfully about human tactical methods that had once been dismissed as cowardly. Hana Kim stood behind her desk, looking at 24 alien faces that showed new understanding and respect. These were no longer arrogant warriors from proud military cultures. They were soldiers who had learned the difference between fighting for glory and fighting for results. Before we discuss your performance during the rescue operation, I want to address some questions that have been raised about human military philosophy. Hana began. She activated the classroom display and showed images from the passenger liner, Mission. Students could see themselves moving through corridors, coordinating with teammates and protecting innocent civilians. Several faculty members have asked why humans approach warfare so differently from other species. They want to know why we emphasize deception over honor, results over recognition. Captain Ray raised one of his 4 hands. Instructor Kim, I believe I can answer that question now. Please proceed, Captain. Other species fight to prove their strength and courage. Humans fight to solve problems. The methods matter less than the outcome. Hana nodded approvingly. That is part of the answer. Commander Yuki, what else have you observed about human military thinking? The Vorthan strategist considered her words carefully. Humans treat warfare as a last resort rather than a first choice. When they do fight, they fight to end conflicts permanently rather than to continue them honorably. Lieutenant Bok-Soo, how would you describe the difference between warrior culture and soldier culture? The Krillian engineer looked thoughtful. Warriors fight for personal glory and cultural traditions. Soldiers fight for specific objectives that serve their entire society. Jin Park spoke without being asked. Warriors want to be remembered for their courage. Soldiers want to be forgotten because their success means peace. Bo Young's environmental suit made soft agreement sounds. Warriors celebrate battle. Soldiers celebrate coming home. Dana O added quietly. Warriors fight until they die gloriously. Soldiers fight until they can stop fighting. Hana walked around to the front of her desk and leaned against it casually. All excellent observations. Now let me share some information that was not included in your academy orientation materials. She pulled out the same ballistic pistol she had used during their first simulation failure. The simple human weapon looked primitive compared to advanced alien military equipment. This pistol was carried by my grandfather during the colonial defense wars. It belonged to my father during the Outer Rim conflicts. I carried it during 3 separate military campaigns before accepting this teaching position. The students looked at the weapon with new interest. What had once seemed like an obsolete antique now represented generations of human military service. My family has been fighting wars for over a century, Hannah continued. Not because we enjoy combat, but because someone needs to protect civilians who cannot protect themselves. She set the pistol on her desk where all students could see it clearly. Every human military officer carries this responsibility. We train for wars we hope will never happen. We prepare for violence we pray we will never need to use. We study the most efficient methods of ending conflicts because we understand the true cost of prolonged fighting. Captain Ray looked uncomfortable. Instructor, we did not realize that humans had such extensive combat experience. Our diplomatic briefings emphasized your peaceful nature. Humans are peaceful, Hannah replied. That is precisely why we are so effective at warfare. We understand what we are protecting and why it matters. She walked over to the equipment rack and selected a plasma rifle identical to the ones her students had used during training exercises. This weapon represents the pinnacle of galactic military technology. It is efficient, precise, and designed for honorable combat between professional soldiers. She held up her grandfather's pistol in her other hand. This weapon is over 200 years old. It is simple, crude, and completely effective at putting down anything that threatens innocent people. The contrast between advanced alien technology and basic human engineering made her point clearly. Advanced civilizations create beautiful weapons for civilized warfare, Hannah explained. Humans create simple tools for solving problems permanently. She returned both weapons to their storage positions and faced her class directly. You are all excellent military officers who will serve your species with honor and distinction. However, you now understand that honor and distinction are not the only considerations in military operations. Lieutenant Bok-Soo raised his hand. Instructor Kim, will human tactical methods